When Kate gave a hungry, trembling stray dog some leftover scraps from the diner's kitchen, she never imagined it would cost her job. Humiliated and heartbroken, she stood frozen as her manager screamed at her. But minutes later, when 4 Navy SEALs stormed through the diner's front door, Kate realized this old dog wasn't just any stray, and her boss had just made a huge mistake. The sun had barely risen over the small coastal town of Clearwater, but Kate Daniels was already 3 hours into her shift at Sandy's diner. A warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixed with sizzling bacon filled the air, greeting regular customers who wandered in for their usual morning meals. Kate was known for her kindness, often slipping an extra piece of bacon onto plates or adding whipped cream smiles to pancakes for children. Her cheerful attitude brightened everyone's morning, everyone's, that is, except for her boss, Mr. Caldwell, a stern man who valued rules above all else. Caldwell rarely smiled and never overlooked mistakes. Outside the diner, unnoticed by most, an elderly dog had been patiently waiting for the last few days. His once golden coat was matted and dirty, his ribs visible beneath thin fur, eyes cloudy with age. Yet despite his frailty, the dog remained alert, scanning each customer who came and went as if hoping someone familiar would appear. Kate's heart broke each time she saw him. She had always been taught compassion. Her father, a retired naval officer, had instilled in her the belief that kindness cost nothing, yet gave everything. That morning, after clearing tables, Kate quietly gathered leftover sausages and pancakes from abandoned plates. Checking over her shoulder to ensure Caldwell was busy in the back, she slipped outside and knelt by the old dog. "Hey, buddy," she whispered gently, holding out the scraps. The dog lifted his weary eyes to her, sniffed cautiously, then began eating gratefully, tail wagging weakly. Kate stroked his head gently, feeling a deep sadness at his condition. "Daniels!" The voice boomed sharply behind her, making her jump. Turning slowly, her heart sank. Caldwell stood in the doorway, face twisted with anger. "I told you before, no feeding strays. It attracts more of them and ruins the diner's reputation." "I'm sorry," Kate pleaded softly, standing up. "He was starving. I couldn't just watch." "You never learn, do you?" Caldwell snapped, his face red. "You're fired, Kate. Get your things and get out. Now." Kate felt her stomach twist painfully. She'd needed this job desperately. But as tears welled in her eyes, Caldwell didn't waver, his harsh gaze cold and unyielding. Just as she turned to leave, the front door of the diner slammed open with a forceful bang. 4 imposing men entered swiftly, dressed in military fatigues. Their presence instantly silenced the bustling room, every eye fixed on the badges stitched onto their uniforms. U.S. Navy SEALs. Kate's breath caught in her throat as the largest of them stepped forward, eyes scanning the diner, until he found the old dog sitting quietly by Kate's side. He raised a hand sharply, signaling his team to stop, and turned directly toward Caldwell, his voice powerful and authoritative. "That dog," he said firmly, eyes blazing, "belongs to us." Kate's heart raced. She glanced down at the elderly stray, who looked up at the SEAL with sudden recognition in his cloudy eyes. But how could an old abandoned dog possibly belong to a team of elite soldiers? A stunned silence fell over Sandy's diner, broken only by the gentle hum of the refrigerators and the distant clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Every eye was fixed on the Navy SEAL who stood at the entrance, his imposing figure commanding immediate attention. Caldwell visibly paled under the soldier's intense stare, uncertainty replacing his earlier bravado. Kate stood frozen, her gaze shifting between the imposing soldiers and the frail, elderly dog by her side. The dog's weary tail began to wag gently, his cloudy eyes locking onto the SEAL who had spoken, recognition sparking clearly through his age-clouded vision. Stepping closer, the SEAL knelt slowly beside the animal, removing his cap with a reverent gentleness that belied his intimidating presence. He carefully studied the dog's worn features, confirming what he already knew deep within his heart. The dog sniffed cautiously, then let out a weak but unmistakably joyful whine. "It really is you," the soldier murmured softly, emotion tightening his voice. Turning back toward Caldwell, his expression hardened instantly. "Did you say this woman was fired for feeding him?" Caldwell swallowed visibly, attempting to regain composure. "Look, I run a business here. She knew the rules. "Do you even realize who this dog is?" The SEAL interrupted sharply, standing to his full, impressive height. Caldwell shook his head mutely, taken aback by the soldier's intensity. "This dog's name is Ranger," the SEAL continued firmly, voice filling the diner with authoritative clarity. "He's a retired military working dog, one of the finest we ever had. He served 6 tours overseas, saved countless lives, including mine, and received honors you couldn't begin to understand." Murmurs of surprise and admiration rippled softly through the customers, many rising from their seats to get a better view. Kate's breath caught sharply. She looked down at Ranger, who had leaned gently against her leg, his tired body seeking comfort as if sensing the safety she offered. "How did he end up here?" Kate asked softly, her voice barely audible above the tense silence. The SEAL's expression softened briefly as he met Kate's eyes. "He retired 2 years ago, adopted by his handler, Chief Petty Officer Mark Harris, my teammate and best friend. Mark passed away unexpectedly last month. Ranger vanished soon after, probably searching for him ever since." Kate's heart clenched painfully, tears forming once more. She knelt again beside Ranger, gently scratching behind his ears. He was waiting here every morning, scanning every face. He must have thought Mark would eventually come. The soldier nodded slowly, profound sadness evident in his gaze. "Ranger spent his whole life protecting others. Now it's our turn to protect him." At these words, Caldwell shifted nervously. I didn't realize. I mean, how could I have known?" "It shouldn't matter," the SEAL cut in coldly, eyes narrowed in righteous anger. "You fired an employee for showing basic human decency. I wonder what your customers will think about that." Several diners exchanged murmurs of agreement, casting disapproving glances toward Caldwell. His face flushed crimson with embarrassment and frustration. Kate felt conflicted satisfaction, though worry about her own future still lingered painfully. Finally, the SEAL turned fully toward her, his face softening again with genuine appreciation. "What's your name?" "Kate," she answered softly, standing again, cheeks flushed slightly. "Kate Daniels." "Kate," the soldier said with solemn gratitude. "Thank you." Not everyone would show compassion to an old stray, especially when it meant risking their job. Mark would have been grateful. Kate felt warmth spread through her chest, humbled by his words. "I only did what felt right," she said softly, gently stroking Ranger's fur. "He deserves to be cared for." The SEAL nodded, glancing toward his teammates who had remained respectfully silent, watchful, and ready. "We came here hoping to find Ranger. Now we need to get him medical care. Would you like to come with us? You've shown him more kindness than he's probably experienced in weeks." Kate hesitated briefly, glancing uncertainly at Caldwell, whose expression had darkened with bitter resentment. The diner had been her sole source of income, and though she desperately needed this job, the idea of walking away, especially alongside the courageous dog and these honorable men, was suddenly irresistible. She lifted her chin determinedly. "Decision made." "Absolutely." A small smile crossed the soldier's face, relief and approval clear in his expression. He nodded to his teammates, signaling quietly. Immediately, the 3 other SEALs moved forward respectfully, forming a protective escort around Kate and Ranger. But just as they turned toward the door, Caldwell's voice cut through the tension, bitter and challenging. "Go ahead, leave. But don't expect this town to take you back after this stunt." Kate paused, heart sinking slightly, doubt flickering in her mind. Then, beside her, Ranger shifted, pressing warmly against her leg with quiet assurance. His gentle strength reminded her of what truly mattered. The SEAL leader paused at the threshold, turning back slowly toward Caldwell. His eyes were cold, unwavering, filled with determination and calm authority. "You underestimate this town, sir, and you clearly underestimate the power of kindness." And as they stepped outside into the early sunlight, Kate realized she'd just made a choice that would change her life forever, though she had no idea yet just how much. Stepping out of Sandy's diner into the bright morning sunlight felt surreal. Kate blinked, adjusting her eyes as the SEALs quickly escorted her and Ranger toward their sleek, black SUV parked at the curb. Townsfolk who had heard rumors of the commotion stood along the sidewalk, whispering in astonishment at the sight of elite military personnel guiding Kate and an old dog from the diner. At the vehicle, the SEAL who had spoken to Caldwell, who introduced himself as Lieutenant Marcus Reed, opened the rear door. He gently lifted Ranger's tired frame, carefully placing him onto the soft bedding inside. The elderly dog sighed deeply, settling down immediately, his weary eyes closing with trustful relief. Marcus gestured for Kate to enter, giving her a reassuring nod. She climbed into the spacious back seat beside Ranger, immediately feeling safer than she had in weeks. Marcus joined her in the back seat, while his teammates slid smoothly into the front. The SUV pulled away smoothly, and Marcus glanced over at Kate with an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry your boss put you through that back there. You didn't deserve it." Kate exhaled softly, glancing down at Ranger sleeping peacefully beside her. "I knew Caldwell wouldn't like it, but I couldn't stand watching Ranger suffer. If doing the right thing costs me my job, well, maybe it wasn't the right place for me after all." Marcus studied her thoughtfully, his expression serious yet gentle. Caldwell made a huge mistake. He underestimated how much people care, not just about Ranger, but about decency. "You're going to be fine, Kate. People notice kindness." She smiled shyly, comforted by his words. "Can you tell me more about Ranger and Mark?" Marcus hesitated briefly, then nodded solemnly. "Mark Harris was my best friend, a brother, really. We served together through multiple deployments. Ranger was his partner, his lifeline. I owe my life to both of them." Kate's gaze softened. "What happened to Mark?" Marcus drew a slow breath, pain visible behind his composed features. "Mark suffered severe injuries overseas, a roadside bomb. He survived initially, but complications arose later. We lost him unexpectedly last month. Ranger was there the whole time. He refused to leave Mark's side, even at the funeral." Kate's heart tightened painfully. Poor Ranger. He must have felt so lost. "He did," Marcus agreed softly. Mark had planned everything for Ranger's retirement, special treatments, a safe home. After he died, Ranger disappeared. We searched everywhere. I guess he was looking for Mark the whole time. Kate gently stroked Ranger's matted fur, her eyes glistening with tears. "He's been sitting outside the diner for days, watching people come and go. He never bothered anyone. He was just waiting." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding fully the heartbreaking image. Military dogs form bonds deeper than most people realize. Ranger spent his entire life serving, protecting, and now grieving. Kate's voice trembled softly. "I'm glad I found him. He deserves better than to end his days hungry and alone." Marcus looked at her warmly, genuine gratitude clear in his eyes. "You gave him hope. Kindness matters, Kate. You reminded Ranger and me that there's still good out there." They traveled quietly for several minutes, the peaceful silence only broken by Ranger's soft breathing. Finally, the SUV slowed as they approached a secured, gated property on the outskirts of town. Marcus leaned forward, showing identification at the checkpoint, and soon they pulled into a secluded facility surrounded by lush trees and meticulously maintained grounds. Kate's eyes widened slightly. "What is this place?" Marcus offered a reassuring smile. "A private rehabilitation center for retired military dogs. Ranger will get the care he needs here. Veterinarians, therapists, people who understand what he's been through." They parked near the main building, and Kate carefully lifted Ranger, who stirred but allowed her to hold him without fuss. Staff immediately approached, gently taking Ranger onto a gurney, whisking him into a well-equipped examination room. Marcus and Kate stood quietly outside the room, watching through a large window as veterinarians began carefully examining Ranger. Marcus glanced at Kate, noticing her anxious expression. "He'll be okay," Marcus said softly. "These vets are the best." Kate nodded quietly, heart full of worry. "I just want him to feel safe again." Suddenly, Marcus's phone vibrated sharply, interrupting their moment. He checked the message, his face immediately darkening. "What's wrong?" Kate asked nervously. Marcus's expression was troubled. "It's Caldwell. He's posting all over social media, accusing you of theft and misconduct. The story's spreading quickly." Kate's stomach twisted anxiously. "I didn't steal anything. He's lying." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We know the truth, Kate, but lies spread fast. Caldwell's stirring up trouble, trying to ruin your reputation." Her heart sank. "Why would he do this?" "Because he's angry and vindictive," Marcus replied bitterly. "But he won't win. We'll fight this." Kate felt suddenly overwhelmed. She'd already lost her job, and now her entire reputation was under attack. Marcus saw her distress clearly. "You're not alone, Kate," he promised firmly. "You showed courage and compassion. Now let us help you. You saved Ranger. Let me save your reputation." She met his eyes, hope flickering despite the uncertainty ahead. "But how?" Marcus smiled reassuringly. "Trust me, I know exactly what to do." Just then, a veterinarian emerged from the examination room, face serious. Marcus and Kate both turned anxiously toward him. "How's Ranger?" Marcus asked urgently. The veterinarian hesitated briefly, choosing his words carefully. "He's severely malnourished and dehydrated, but those are treatable. However, we found something else during the examination. Something concerning." Kate's breath caught sharply. "What is it?" The veterinarian paused, meeting their anxious gazes solemnly. "We found a microchip implanted under his skin, but it's not military. It's private, highly encrypted, and actively transmitting. Ranger wasn't just lost. Someone was tracking him deliberately. And whoever it is, they're coming right now." Marcus and Kate exchanged stunned, fearful glances as realization dawned sharply. Ranger's ordeal was far from over, and neither was theirs. Kate's pulse quickened sharply at the veterinarian's chilling revelation. Beside her, Marcus stiffened visibly, the warmth in his eyes rapidly replaced by grim, professional alertness. "A private tracking device?" he asked sharply, voice low and controlled. "Are you sure?" The veterinarian nodded solemnly, eyes serious behind wire-framed glasses. "Positive, it's highly sophisticated, advanced encryption. Something you'd expect to see in high-level intelligence circles, not a retired military dog." Marcus exchanged tense glances with his teammates, silently signaling readiness. Kate watched anxiously, her heart pounding with confusion and fear. Why would someone put a tracker on Ranger? Marcus's jaw tightened grimly. "That's what we need to figure out, and fast." Just then, the shrill tone of an alarm echoed urgently through the halls, red emergency lights flashing throughout the facility. Staff began scrambling rapidly, the calm environment instantly replaced by chaos. A security guard burst into the clinic, eyes wide and breathing hard. "We have multiple vehicles approaching rapidly, black SUVs, heavily armed individuals. We're locking down, but they'll breach any minute." Marcus immediately snapped into command mode. "Secure Ranger, move him deeper into the facility, lock down all entrances." The veterinarian nodded quickly, wheeling Ranger's gurney toward a reinforced interior chamber. Kate followed instinctively, panic flaring sharply. Marcus swiftly blocked her path, his expression deeply conflicted. "Kate, stay here. It's too dangerous." "No," she insisted fiercely. "I promised Ranger I wouldn't leave him. I need to know he's safe." Marcus hesitated only a split second before nodding sharply, determination replacing doubt. "Stay close to me. Do exactly as I say." They raced down the sterile corridor, Marcus leading confidently, his SEAL teammates swiftly flanking them, weapons drawn and ready. Behind them, the thunderous sound of metal doors slamming shut reverberated through the building as the facility locked down. Arriving at the inner secure room, they found the veterinarian already locking Ranger safely inside a reinforced, bulletproof enclosure. Ranger whimpered softly, eyes wide and confused, searching anxiously for Kate. She approached quickly, gently placing her hand against the glass. "I'm here, Ranger. You're safe." Ranger calmed visibly, settling down slightly at her reassurance. Kate turned to Marcus, anxiety etched deep on her face. Who are these people? What could they possibly want with Ranger? Marcus shook his head slowly, eyes sharp and calculating. Someone must know his true capabilities. Ranger was trained not just in bomb detection, but also highly classified operations. Whatever secrets he might still carry, they could be worth a fortune. Kate felt a sickening dread coiled tightly within her chest. She had only wanted to help a starving dog, never imagining she'd become entangled in such danger. But Marcus placed a reassuring hand briefly on her shoulder, his voice steady and calming. "I promise, we won't let anyone hurt Ranger, or you." Suddenly, a violent explosion shook the building, rattling walls and sending dust cascading from ceiling panels. The unmistakable sound of gunfire echoed sharply through the facility corridors. Marcus immediately moved into action. "Stay behind me. We need to hold them off until backup arrives." They hurried back toward the main corridor, taking strategic positions behind overturned medical carts and heavy metal cabinets. The facility's security guards engaged fiercely with the intruders, but the attackers moved with ruthless efficiency, professionally trained and clearly prepared for intense resistance. Kate's heart hammered violently as footsteps approached swiftly. Two masked intruders rounded the corner, weapons raised aggressively. Marcus and his team moved instantly, swift precision overcoming their opponents quickly, disarming them and securing them efficiently. Marcus knelt sharply beside one of the subdued attackers, tearing away his mask roughly. "Who sent you? Why do you want the dog?" The attacker sneered coldly, eyes defiant despite being restrained. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. That dog is worth more than all of your lives combined." Marcus narrowed his eyes coldly. "Who hired you?" Before the man could answer, a loud crash sounded from behind, a wall shattering violently inward. More armed attackers poured into the corridor, rapidly overwhelming the remaining security personnel. Kate screamed as Marcus shielded her protectively, gun drawn and ready, firing precise defensive shots. Despite his skill, they were rapidly becoming outnumbered. Marcus quickly pulled Kate back, shouting urgently, "Fall back, protect Ranger!" They retreated toward Ranger's secure room, reaching the reinforced enclosure just as another explosion detonated behind them, the blast knocking Kate off balance. Marcus grabbed her firmly, steadying her, eyes locked fiercely on the chaos closing in. "Get inside the enclosure, Kate," Marcus commanded desperately. "Lock it behind you." "No," she protested, terrified for him. "I won't leave you." Marcus stared at her, urgency blazing in his eyes. "Kate, Ranger needs you alive. You're the only one he fully trusts. Do this, for him." With tears streaming down her cheeks, Kate nodded reluctantly, turning toward the enclosure's door. But before she could reach it, another masked attacker burst forward, weapon aimed directly at her. Kate froze, heart stopping in terror. Marcus lunged swiftly, shielding her with his body, preparing to face the attacker head-on. Then, abruptly, the assailant lowered his weapon, holding up a device in his other hand, a small remote control. "Nobody moves. I've rigged explosives throughout this building. Give me the dog or I blow the entire facility." Marcus stiffened, eyes narrowed dangerously. "You wouldn't risk losing Ranger." The attacker smiled cruelly behind his mask. "I'm authorized to use any means necessary. The choice is yours. Hand over the dog, or everyone dies right now." Kate looked desperately toward Ranger, whose eyes were now locked firmly onto hers, sensing danger. Her heart shattered at the impossible choice before them. Then, from the enclosure, Ranger slowly struggled to his feet. Despite weakness, he pressed his nose gently against the glass, staring calmly yet resolutely at Kate, his clouded eyes steady with profound trust. And in that moment, Kate knew exactly what she had to do. With trembling determination, she stepped forward boldly, voice strong despite the chaos around her. "You're not taking Ranger," she declared firmly, unwavering. "Not without going through me first." The masked intruder's eyes flickered briefly with surprise at Kate's unwavering stance, clearly not expecting such fierce defiance from someone so seemingly vulnerable. Yet his hand remained steady on the remote detonator, a grim reminder of the catastrophic threat still looming. Marcus tensed beside Kate, assessing every angle, searching desperately for a tactical solution. Around them, the hallway was littered with debris, wounded security guards groaning softly, the acrid smell of smoke thickening the tense atmosphere. Marcus knew any sudden move could trigger devastation. The attacker glared coldly at Kate, his voice low and chilling. "You really think you can stop this? You're just a waitress who couldn't keep her job. Step aside." Kate didn't budge, her heart pounding furiously in her chest. But she felt an unexpected courage surge through her veins. born not from bravery alone, but from the unwavering loyalty reflected clearly in Ranger's trusting gaze. "I won't," she replied steadily. "You'll have to kill me first." Behind the attacker's mask, hesitation flickered again. He had anticipated resistance from trained soldiers, not from an ordinary young woman whose only weapon was compassion. Marcus quickly took advantage of this momentary uncertainty, stepping protectively forward. "Listen, no one has to die. You don't have to do this. There's another way." The attacker shook his head sharply, voice harsh beneath the mask. "My employer made it clear, bring the dog or leave no survivors. I'm just following orders." "Orders that get innocent people killed," Kate challenged fiercely, tears brimming in her eyes. "Ranger is innocent. All he ever did was serve and protect. And now you want to turn him into some tool or weapon again. Haven't you caused enough pain?" The attacker hesitated visibly, the conflict evident despite his professional composure. Behind him, Marcus's teammates subtly shifted positions, their disciplined movements barely noticeable, yet preparing for a calculated strike. The tension stretched tautly, unbearably. Then, unexpectedly, Ranger himself intervened. The elderly dog pressed his frail body more firmly against the enclosure glass, drawing all eyes toward him. His clouded eyes stared intently at the masked intruder, recognition sparking faintly, tail wagging softly despite his weakened condition. Confused, the attacker involuntarily glanced toward Ranger, and in that instant, Marcus and his team seized the opportunity. In a blur of coordinated action, Marcus lunged forward, swiftly disarming the intruder and pinning him to the floor. His teammates moved simultaneously, securing weapons and neutralizing the threat of immediate explosives. Kate exhaled sharply, relief flooding her as the detonator fell harmlessly to the ground, safely retrieved by another SEAL. Marcus kept his knee firmly pressed against the attacker's back, quickly removing the mask with swift precision. The revealed face beneath stunned them all. "Jacob!" Marcus gasped, eyes widening in disbelief. "What the hell are you doing here?" The man beneath him grimaced bitterly, eyes filled with regretful defiance. "You think I wanted this? They've got my family, Marcus. I had no choice." Marcus stared at him, stunned into silence, clearly grappling with this revelation. He finally shook his head bitterly. "There's always a choice. You could have come to us for help." Jacob's expression twisted in anguish. "I tried, but they're everywhere. Whoever's behind this has eyes and ears all over. I couldn't risk it." Kate stepped closer, cautiously, heart aching for the desperation in Jacob's voice. "Who's doing this? Who's behind this madness?" Jacob hesitated, conflicted emotions evident on his weary face. "They're powerful, well-connected. Ex-intelligence, private contractors. They use retired military dogs like Ranger for highly illegal operations, smuggling, covert assassinations. They're ruthless." Marcus clenched his fists angrily. "Why Ranger? Why him specifically?" "Because Ranger knows things. Classified locations, security protocols, information implanted through advanced training techniques. He's a walking vault of military secrets. They lost track of him after Mark Harris died. When they finally tracked him again, they panicked. That's why they're so desperate." Kate's heart tightened painfully, her hand instinctively reaching toward Ranger, who watched quietly yet alertly from his enclosure. The idea that this gentle, loyal dog had endured such cruelty filled her with deep sorrow and protective fury. Marcus rose slowly, signaling his teammates to secure Jacob carefully. He turned toward Kate, eyes filled with quiet determination. "We have to move Ranger immediately. This location is compromised. They'll send backup, stronger and better prepared." Kate nodded firmly, her courage unwavering. "Then we leave now. I'm not letting Ranger out of my sight." Marcus smiled faintly, respect and admiration clear in his gaze. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Quickly, they secured Ranger into a portable, reinforced carrier, carefully shielding him from the chaos around them. Marcus led Kate swiftly through concealed exits, emerging cautiously into dense woodland behind the facility, their footsteps silent yet urgent. They moved rapidly, Marcus navigating confidently through thick underbrush toward an awaiting emergency vehicle concealed further within the trees. Kate kept close to Ranger's carrier, soothing him gently whenever he whimpered anxiously. But just as they neared their escape vehicle, Marcus's radio crackled sharply with urgent static. "Marcus!" the voice shouted desperately. "We just got intel. They weren't here only for Ranger. They have your location now, and they're tracking Kate too. She's become a target. They know she has Ranger's trust." Kate's breath caught sharply, heart hammering in terror. Marcus immediately shielded her protectively, eyes scanning the darkening trees with vigilant intensity. Then, suddenly, headlights flared to life around them, engines roaring loudly as multiple vehicles rapidly encircled their position. They were completely surrounded. A commanding voice echoed loudly through the darkness. "Marcus Reed, hand over the dog and the woman now, or prepare to face the consequences." Marcus stood fiercely beside Kate, voice unwavering. "Over my dead body." The response from the darkness was chillingly calm. "That can be arranged." The circle of headlights was blinding, harsh beams cutting sharply through the darkness, casting eerie shadows across Marcus and Kate's tense faces. The low hum of powerful engines surrounded them, amplifying the suffocating sense of vulnerability. Ranger whimpered softly from within his carrier, clearly sensing the danger looming just beyond their protective circle. Marcus immediately stepped forward, shielding Kate and Ranger with his imposing presence. His jaw tightened fiercely, eyes scanning the illuminated perimeter, searching desperately for an opening, an escape, any hope of avoiding a deadly confrontation. From the cluster of black SUVs surrounding them, doors opened simultaneously. Several heavily armed men emerged slowly, professionally, military precision evident in their cold, efficient movements. At their center stood a tall, impeccably dressed figure, his posture rigid with icy authority. He approached calmly, stepping into the glow of headlights, his features sharply defined and emotionless. Marcus's eyes narrowed with instant recognition. "Colonel Vincent Callahan," he growled bitterly. "I should have known." Callahan smiled thinly, without warmth. "Lieutenant Reed, it's unfortunate circumstances reunite us. I'd hoped you'd cooperate willingly. Your continued defiance complicates matters unnecessarily." Marcus's voice hardened angrily. "You crossed the line when you targeted innocent civilians and a retired military dog. Ranger served with honor. He deserves better than becoming your weapon." Colonel Callahan tilted his head slightly, cold amusement flickering briefly across his features. "You misunderstand, Lieutenant. Ranger is not merely a weapon, he's a strategic asset. He possesses critical intelligence, information encoded neurologically during his specialized training. Intelligence our enemies would pay handsomely for, and intelligence we absolutely must control." Kate stepped forward defiantly, despite trembling slightly with fear and anger. "He's not an asset, he's a living being. You can't just use him like some disposable object. He's suffered enough." Callahan regarded her coldly, curiosity evident behind his calculating gaze. "Kate Daniels, remarkably courageous for someone so ordinary. Yet your compassion has made you vulnerable. Ranger trusts you explicitly. That makes you extremely valuable to us." Marcus stiffened visibly, protectively blocking Kate again. "Leave her out of this. She's innocent." Callahan's expression remained indifferent, calculating. "Innocence is irrelevant here, Lieutenant. She's become a crucial factor. Ranger's bond with her can unlock the information we need. Her cooperation, willing or not, is non-negotiable." Kate's heart sank, dread coiling tighter in her chest. Marcus instinctively reached for her hand, gripping it firmly, conveying silent reassurance despite their dire situation. Callahan stepped forward slowly, voice smooth yet chilling. "Here's my offer, Lieutenant. Surrender peacefully, and no one else gets hurt. Defy me, and I'll personally ensure you watch Miss Daniels suffer the consequences." Marcus's eyes blazed furiously, fists clenching tightly. Kate squeezed his hand urgently, silently urging caution. "Don't," she whispered softly, voice trembling. "He wants you to react." Marcus exhaled harshly, forcing himself under control, glaring at Callahan with quiet intensity. "Hurting innocent people. This isn't what we fought for." "You've lost your way, Colonel." Callahan's calm demeanor cracked slightly, cold anger seeping into his expression. "Idealism is a luxury, Reed. Our enemies won't hesitate. Neither will I." Just then, unexpectedly, A faint rustling whispered softly through the surrounding woods, almost imperceptible beneath tense voices and rumbling engines. Marcus subtly shifted position, eyes flickering briefly toward the sound. Callahan noticed instantly, raising a suspicious eyebrow. "You brought backup?" Callahan asked mockingly. Brave, but ultimately futile. Marcus's gaze never wavered, remaining defiantly focused. "There are still people who value honor over power, Colonel. You've underestimated loyalty and courage, traits you clearly abandoned long ago." Callahan's cold eyes narrowed dangerously. "Enough. Take the dog and Miss Daniels. Neutralize Reed." Instantly, his armed men moved forward aggressively. Marcus and Kate stood their ground bravely, adrenaline surging sharply through their veins, prepared to fight despite overwhelming odds. But then, without warning, the shadows around them erupted into sudden, coordinated action. Dozens of figures appeared from the dense darkness, swiftly engaging Callahan's operatives, expertly trained hands quickly subduing threats with ruthless precision. Marcus reacted instantly, shielding Kate protectively as chaos erupted fiercely around them. Within moments, Callahan's men were neutralized or disarmed, shock clearly evident in the colonel's previously composed expression. From the shadows, a familiar figure stepped confidently forward, expression grave yet reassuring. Kate recognized him immediately. Lieutenant Commander David Morgan, Marcus's trusted superior officer and mentor, accompanied by additional Navy SEALs in tactical gear. Marcus's relief was immediate and profound. "Commander Morgan, your timing is impeccable." Morgan nodded grimly. "We've been tracking Callahan for months, gathering evidence of illegal operations involving retired military assets. Ranger was their missing piece, a dog whose neurological implants store highly classified intel." Callahan's face twisted bitterly, aware of his imminent defeat. "You're making a grave mistake interfering. This operation extends far beyond me." Commander Morgan's eyes narrowed sharply. "We'll find out how far, but first, you'll answer for your crimes." Additional SEALs swiftly secured Callahan, placing him firmly into custody. Kate watched quietly, heart flooded with immense relief, gripping Marcus's hand tightly. Deeply grateful, yet emotionally overwhelmed, Morgan turned warmly toward Kate, expression gentle. "Miss Daniels, your bravery and compassion helped us more than you realize. Ranger trusted you completely, and now, thanks to you, he'll finally be safe." Kate's eyes filled with tears, relief washing over her in powerful waves. "He deserves peace." "No more suffering," Morgan nodded firmly. "He'll get that now, I promise. But first, we must get him and you to safety immediately. Callahan's network is extensive. You'll need protection." Kate glanced anxiously toward Ranger, still secured protectively in his reinforced carrier. "And Ranger?" Marcus squeezed her hand reassuringly, eyes filled with profound gratitude and warmth. "We'll ensure Ranger's safety, but Kate, this isn't over." Callahan was right. Ranger carries critical information. We need your help to protect him and unlock those secrets safely. Kate drew a deep breath, determination replacing her earlier fear. "Anything Ranger needs, I'm here." Morgan smiled warmly. "Then we move now. There's no time to lose." Yet, just as relief settled briefly over them, Marcus's radio crackled sharply again, urgent voices shouting through static. "Commander Morgan, Lieutenant Reed, urgent!" Callahan's associates compromised our backup location. They know Ranger's exact position. You're walking straight into an ambush. Marcus's expression darkened instantly, eyes locking fiercely onto Kate's terrified gaze, realizing the terrible truth. Their fight for Ranger's safety had only just begun, and the true battle still awaited them. Marcus's blood ran cold as the desperate warning from his radio echoed sharply through the clearing. Commander Morgan's eyes flashed darkly, instantly evaluating their compromised position. Kate's grip on Marcus's hand tightened painfully, panic returning to her face. Around them, even the highly trained SEAL team tensed visibly, their earlier relief shattered by this devastating revelation. Morgan reacted swiftly, barking precise commands into his radio. "Secure immediate evac routes. All units, prepare for imminent engagement. Move Ranger and civilians into protected positions. Now!" The team sprang into action, forming a tight defensive formation around Ranger's carrier. Marcus immediately pulled Kate protectively close, eyes locked firmly onto hers, determination shining brightly despite the mounting danger. "We'll get through this," Marcus assured firmly, steadying her with his confident presence. "We're trained for moments like these. Trust me." Kate drew a deep, shaky breath, steadying her racing heart as best she could. "I trust you," she whispered softly. "But Ranger, he's been through so much already. I can't bear for him to suffer more." Marcus squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Neither can I, but right now Ranger's safest with us. Stay close." Commander Morgan approached swiftly, expression grimly resolute. "Our primary extraction points compromised. Callahan's people anticipated our moves. We need another option, fast." Marcus nodded sharply. "There's an old maintenance tunnel under the facility, a secret exit route we scouted earlier. It's risky but might give us a way out." Morgan considered briefly, then agreed decisively. "We move immediately. Lieutenant Reed, you and Kate stay close to Ranger. Protect him at all costs." The team quickly mobilized, guiding Ranger's reinforced carrier carefully but swiftly toward the concealed maintenance tunnel entrance. Kate moved steadily, adrenaline surging fiercely through her veins, senses hyper-aware of every shadow, every sound. Inside the dark, narrow passageway, the air felt stale, the silence oppressive. Flashlights flickered softly, illuminating the rough concrete walls surrounding them. Ranger whined softly within his carrier, clearly sensing the heightened tension, anxious and afraid. "It's okay, boy," Kate whispered soothingly, reaching through a small opening to gently stroke his fur. "I won't let anything happen to you. You're safe now." Marcus glanced at her with quiet admiration, deeply moved by her unwavering compassion, even amid danger. "Ranger's lucky to have you," he murmured softly. Kate offered a small, nervous smile, heart touched by his genuine praise. "I'm lucky I found him. He reminded me of what matters: compassion, loyalty, courage." I needed that reminder. Marcus's expression softened further, gratitude clear in his eyes. But before he could reply, urgent shouts echoed loudly behind them. Their pursuers had breached the tunnel entrance, rapidly closing the distance. "Move faster!" Morgan shouted sharply, urgency tightening his voice. They quickened their pace, heartbeats pounding relentlessly. The tunnel twisted and turned sharply, disorienting and claustrophobic. Marcus guided Kate protectively, never letting her stray more than a few steps from his side. Yet suddenly, just ahead, a metal security gate blocked their path, locked firmly, unyielding. Marcus cursed sharply, quickly inspecting the lock mechanism. "It's reinforced, won't open easily." Behind them, enemy footsteps echoed closer, voices raised aggressively, shouting commands to locate their targets swiftly. Kate's heart raced wildly, fear surging anew. She glanced desperately toward Marcus, voice trembling. "What do we do?" Marcus's jaw tightened grimly, determination blazing fiercely in his eyes. "We hold them off. Morgan, get that gate open, whatever it takes." Morgan and his SEAL team immediately went to work, attempting to bypass security mechanisms with focused precision. Meanwhile, Marcus swiftly positioned himself defensively between the approaching threat and Kate, weapon ready, expression hardened into cold resolve. Kate stood behind him, fear gripping her chest, heart hammering desperately. Yet, despite terror, her mind raced clearly. She would not let Ranger suffer again. "Marcus, give me something to fight with," she demanded bravely. Marcus hesitated briefly, conflicted. "Kate, it's dangerous." "So is standing here helplessly," she insisted fiercely. "Ranger trusts me. Let me protect him too." Seeing her unwavering resolve, Marcus reluctantly handed her a compact defensive weapon. "Aim steady, breathe calmly," he instructed quickly. "You're stronger than you realize." She nodded determinedly, gripping the weapon tightly, prepared to protect Ranger at any cost. Moments later, their attackers burst into view, heavily armed and aggressively confident, weapons trained sharply. "Hand over the dog!" their leader shouted coldly. "This is your final warning!" Marcus stepped forward defiantly, "You're not taking Ranger! Stand down!" The leader's eyes narrowed dangerously, clearly losing patience. "Your courage won't save you. We have you trapped." Before Marcus could respond, a sudden flash illuminated the tunnel behind the attackers. Loud, chaotic shouting erupted as unexpected gunfire broke out fiercely. Another group had entered the fray. The attackers spun around frantically, momentarily confused, quickly returning fire. In the confusion, Marcus immediately shielded Kate and Ranger again, urgently pressing them flat against the tunnel wall. Kate's heart raced wildly, confusion and fear tangling fiercely inside her. "Who's fighting them now?" she shouted over gunfire. Marcus shook his head uncertainly, expression tense yet hopeful. "Reinforcements. Must be our backup." Yet, as gunfire subsided quickly, silence settled uneasily. Moments later, slow footsteps approached deliberately from behind lingering smoke and shadows. Marcus tensed, weapon ready, cautiously preparing to defend against whoever emerged. Then, shockingly, a familiar figure stepped calmly into their flashlight beams, face partially shadowed yet unmistakable. Kate's eyes widened in disbelief. Caldwell. Her former boss stood confidently, cold determination etched into his face. But instead of anger or disdain, his expression radiated icy calm and ruthless authority. Marcus instantly aimed his weapon sharply, voice dangerously low. "What's your role in this, Caldwell?" Caldwell smiled thinly, revealing a shocking, unexpected composure and cunning Kate had never imagined possible. "Did you really think a small-town diner was my only business, Lieutenant? Ranger wasn't outside Sandy's by accident. I lured him. I've known about his value all along." Kate's stomach twisted sickeningly with betrayal and rage. "You're behind all of this." Caldwell nodded coolly. "Ranger was my ticket back into high-level intelligence circles. And you, Kate, you were the perfect bait. Your compassion was entirely predictable." Marcus clenched his jaw furiously, voice shaking with contained rage. "You used her kindness to trap Ranger." Caldwell's eyes glittered coldly. "Precisely. But now, you're all out of options." From behind Caldwell, more heavily armed figures emerged menacingly, weapons raised threateningly. Caldwell stepped forward slowly, voice chillingly calm. "Give me Ranger willingly, or I take him, and leave no survivors." Marcus's eyes flashed fiercely, defiance blazing clearly. Kate stood bravely beside him, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. "You'll never have Ranger," she declared defiantly, heart surging with courage. "Not while I'm still breathing." Caldwell smiled coldly, raising his weapon deliberately. "Then you leave me no choice." Time seemed to slow as Caldwell raised his weapon, the cold metallic click echoing sharply through the oppressive tunnel. Kate's breath caught sharply in her throat, fear gripping her chest, paralyzing her for a fraction of a heartbeat. Beside her, Marcus stood steadfastly defiant, his expression hardened by fierce resolve, determined to protect Ranger and Kate even at the cost of his own life. Yet, just as Caldwell's finger tightened ominously around the trigger, another voice echoed forcefully from deeper within the tunnel, strong, authoritative, familiar. "Stand down immediately, Caldwell." All eyes snapped toward the commanding presence, stepping swiftly from the shadows. Kate's eyes widened incredulously as she recognized the tall, powerful figure emerging confidently, dressed in full Navy SEAL tactical gear. It was Commander Morgan, reinforced by an elite SEAL strike team, armed, trained, ready. Caldwell hesitated visibly, confusion and anger briefly crossing his face. His eyes narrowed sharply, voice low and challenging. "Commander Morgan, you're too late. Your men are surrounded. Interfering now would be suicidal." Morgan advanced steadily, unwavering and poised, weapon aimed with steady precision. His voice resonated clearly through the tunnel. "You've betrayed your country, Caldwell, manipulating civilians, endangering loyal servicemen and animals, all for personal gain. Surrender now, and you might survive this." Caldwell sneered bitterly, contempt flickering dangerously. "You still don't understand. Ranger's neurological data contains critical military secrets, intel powerful enough to shift global alliances. Imagine the power that knowledge provides." Morgan's voice hardened fiercely. Ranger is a living being, Caldwell. Not your weapon, not your bargaining chip. You've crossed lines no soldier should ever cross. Caldwell shook his head coldly, eyes narrowing dangerously. You're naive, Commander. The world operates on power, information, leverage. Sentimentality is weakness. Kate stepped forward defiantly, emotion tightening her voice, fiercely protective. You're wrong. Ranger isn't weak. He represents everything good, loyal, brave. Qualities you abandoned long ago. Caldwell's expression twisted briefly, anger flaring clearly, finger again pressing dangerously on the trigger. But before he could fire, a sudden, powerful bark echoed sharply from Ranger's carrier. Despite his frail condition, the elderly dog stood up firmly, paws pressing determinedly against the metal door, his voice ringing powerfully through the tunnel. All eyes turned immediately toward Ranger, astonished by his strength, his bravery even now. The dog's fierce gaze locked unwaveringly onto Caldwell, challenging and unafraid. Marcus's eyes widened in astonishment, recognition and realization dawning quickly. Ranger knows you, doesn't he, Caldwell? That's why he never left the diner. He was waiting, guarding something he knew you wanted. Something Mark Harris entrusted to him. Caldwell hesitated visibly, uncertainty flickering behind cold eyes. You're guessing. Marcus shook his head confidently, voice steady and certain. Ranger's microchip doesn't just track location. It holds encrypted files Mark concealed. Evidence exposing your treasonous network. Ranger's waiting wasn't coincidence. He stayed near Kate because she reminded him of Mark. She was his guardian. Kate's breath caught sharply, heart swelling with profound pride and gratitude. Her gentle care had unknowingly protected something precious, something Ranger trusted her implicitly to safeguard. Caldwell's expression darkened furiously, desperation overriding composure. Enough. Give me Ranger now, or I'll destroy you all. Morgan immediately stepped protectively forward, weapons aimed sharply, voice steady and commanding. Are you finished, Caldwell? It's over. Yet Caldwell's face twisted bitterly, voice chillingly cold. If I'm going down, I'll take everyone with me. His hand moved suddenly toward his pocket, withdrawing a small detonator device, another explosive trigger, far more powerful and dangerous than before. Kate's heart stopped momentarily, terror gripping her chest fiercely. No! Marcus shouted urgently, lunging desperately forward. But before he could reach Caldwell, Ranger acted swiftly, instinctively, pressing forcefully against the carrier door, triggering its emergency release mechanism. The metal swung open, and despite his weakened state, Ranger leapt courageously from confinement, lunging powerfully toward Caldwell's outstretched hand, jaws clamping fiercely onto his wrist. Caldwell screamed sharply, dropping the detonator in shock and pain. The small device skittered harmlessly across the floor, quickly secured by Morgan's waiting men. Marcus and Morgan moved instantly, disarming and restraining Caldwell firmly, removing any remaining threat swiftly. Caldwell glared hatefully at Ranger, cradling his bleeding hand bitterly. But Ranger's energy was fading rapidly. The elderly dog staggered weakly, collapsing softly onto the tunnel floor, breathing shallow and rapid, exhausted by his heroic effort. Kate rushed immediately to his side, heart wrenching painfully. She knelt carefully, cradling Ranger's frail body gently, tears spilling freely down her cheeks. Please, Ranger, stay with me. You fought so bravely. Don't leave now. Marcus knelt silently beside her, gently stroking Ranger's fur, his own eyes filled with profound sadness, yet deep gratitude. You saved us, boy. Again? Ranger lifted his weary head slightly, eyes clouded yet warm, meeting Kate's gaze with profound trust, loyalty, and unconditional love. His tail wagged faintly, conveying silent reassurance. He had done his duty, protected those he cared for deeply. He trusted Kate to carry forward the fight he no longer could. Kate's voice trembled softly, emotion overwhelming her. Thank you, Ranger. You've taught me more than I ever imagined about courage and compassion. You're a hero. Ranger's eyes slowly closed, breathing calming slightly, reassured by her comforting presence. Marcus gently placed a supportive hand on Kate's shoulder, his voice steady yet deeply emotional. We'll get him help, Kate. He deserves peace. Commander Morgan approached solemnly, deeply moved by the sacrifice he'd just witnessed. "We have secure transport waiting above ground. Ranger and everyone else must move quickly. Caldwell's associates will not rest until Ranger's information is secured or destroyed." Kate nodded determinedly, carefully lifting Ranger's weakened body, holding him gently yet protectively in her arms. "We won't let them win. Ranger's sacrifice means everything. It's our turn to protect him now." Marcus stood firmly beside her, eyes resolute and fierce. "Together, we fight for Ranger now." Yet just as hope flickered tentatively within their hearts, Marcus's radio crackled urgently once more, another devastating update. "Commander, Lieutenant, multiple enemy vehicles rapidly approaching extraction point. Enemy has activated tracking beacon in Ranger's chip. Repeat, our evac site is compromised. Expect immediate heavy resistance upon exit." Kate's heart clenched painfully. Marcus's expression hardened instantly, gripping her shoulder reassuringly yet urgently. "The fight isn't over," he warned grimly. "They're still coming for Ranger." Morgan's eyes flashed determinedly. "Then we fight harder. Ranger risked everything to protect us. We won't fail him now." But Kate's mind raced frantically, realization sinking heavily into her chest. Caldwell's defeat wasn't the end. It was merely a prelude. Their final desperate battle for Ranger's life and the secrets he carried had only just begun. Kate's heartbeat thundered relentlessly in her chest, each frantic pulse echoing the ominous warning from the radio. Enemy reinforcements were rapidly closing in, leaving them little time or options. Commander Morgan immediately snapped into action, barking orders decisively. "Team, secure Ranger immediately. Lieutenant Reed, Miss Daniels, stay close to me. We'll fight our way out if we have to, but we must reach extraction now." Marcus nodded sharply, eyes blazing with fierce determination. He gently yet swiftly guided Kate toward the narrow stairwell leading upward to the surface. Kate cradled Ranger's weakened form carefully, each step upward painfully difficult, yet filled with resolute determination. Reaching the surface moments later, the group emerged cautiously into the rapidly fading twilight. The sound of approaching enemy vehicles was unmistakable. Roaring engines, squealing tires, urgent shouts filling the air. Powerful floodlights swept harshly across the area, immediately pinpointing their location. Morgan signaled quickly, directing his team into a defensive formation around Kate and Ranger. Marcus stayed protectively by her side, his gaze locked firmly onto the approaching threat. "Hold your positions," Morgan commanded urgently. "Reinforcements inbound. Just hold the line." Gunfire erupted suddenly from the darkness, bullets whizzing sharply past them, striking the ground dangerously close. Kate gasped sharply, instinctively shielding Ranger with her own body, heart hammering wildly. "Keep down!" Marcus shouted fiercely, his strong arm wrapping protectively around her shoulders. "We'll get through this, I promise." Yet despite Marcus's reassuring words, fear gnawed fiercely at Kate's heart. Ranger whimpered softly in her arms, his frail body trembling slightly from the relentless noise, chaos, and overwhelming stress. Kate held him tighter, whispering soothing words, determined to comfort him through this terrifying ordeal. Across the clearing, more enemy vehicles screeched abruptly to a halt, heavily armed operatives emerging rapidly, weapons aimed aggressively. Another authoritative figure stepped confidently from the lead vehicle, voice booming harshly through the chaos. "You're surrounded. Hand over the dog, or we'll eliminate everyone here." Marcus tensed instantly, his expression darkening dangerously. Kate recognized the figure immediately, dread twisting sharply within her chest. It was Colonel Vincent Callahan himself, somehow free again, standing defiantly before them, eyes cold and merciless. Commander Morgan stepped forward defiantly, weapon trained steadily. "Callahan, surrender immediately. Your plans are exposed. There's nowhere left for you to run." Callahan smiled cruelly, utterly unfazed. "I have powerful allies, Commander. Hand over Ranger, or you'll die defending a useless animal." Kate bristled furiously, rage overcoming fear, stepping boldly beside Morgan. "Ranger's life is worth infinitely more than yours. He represents everything honorable that you abandoned. Loyalty, bravery, integrity." Callahan laughed bitterly, eyes glittering dangerously. Idealistic nonsense. Ranger carries vital information, and I'll do whatever it takes to control that power. Marcus stepped protectively beside Kate, expression fiercely defiant. You'll never have him, Callahan. Your obsession with power blinded you. Ranger is loyal and courageous, qualities you could never comprehend. Callahan's eyes narrowed dangerously. Very well. You've made your choice. He raised his hand sharply, signaling his operatives to open fire. Kate's breath caught sharply, preparing instinctively for the devastating assault. But suddenly, unexpected gunfire erupted powerfully from a different direction, shocking everyone. More vehicles sped swiftly into view, heavily armored, bearing official Navy insignia, their occupants firing precisely and expertly at Callahan's forces. Kate's heart surged hopefully. Real reinforcements had finally arrived. Callahan's operatives scrambled frantically for cover, rapidly overwhelmed by the expertly coordinated counterattack. Marcus and Morgan seized the opportunity, guiding Kate urgently toward the new arrivals. As they reached the Navy convoy, the lead vehicle's door swung open sharply. A tall, authoritative figure emerged, instantly recognizable and deeply reassuring. Admiral Jonathan Blake, legendary Navy commander, respected widely for his courage and integrity. Blake approached swiftly, expression grave yet compassionate. Commander Morgan, Lieutenant Reed, we're extracting immediately. Miss Daniels, bring Ranger inside quickly. Kate exhaled shakily, immense relief flooding her. She moved swiftly toward the Admiral's armored vehicle, carefully placing Ranger inside, whispering comforting words softly. Marcus remained protectively by her side, expression cautious yet hopeful. But before they could fully secure Ranger, a sudden shout pierced the chaos. Callahan, desperate and cornered, emerged recklessly from cover, weapon aimed sharply at Kate, eyes wild and furious. If I can't have Ranger, neither can you. Marcus reacted instantly, lunging protectively toward Kate, but in the split second before Callahan could fire, another figure darted forward unexpectedly, tackling Callahan powerfully to the ground. Kate gasped sharply, eyes widening incredulously. It was Jacob, the earlier attacker who had confessed his coerced involvement. He wrestled fiercely with Callahan, weapon firing wildly during their struggle. In the chaotic melee, Jacob managed to restrain Callahan briefly, shouting desperately toward Kate and Marcus. Get Ranger out of here now, I owe him this! Marcus hesitated briefly, conflicted, but Admiral Blake shouted firmly from the vehicle. We have to move! Now! Marcus grabbed Kate's arm firmly, urgently guiding her into the vehicle. She reluctantly complied, heart aching with gratitude and sadness for Jacob's desperate redemption. Blake signaled immediately, the vehicle accelerating rapidly away from the chaotic scene. Behind them, the battle continued fiercely, yet Kate knew their escape was fragile and uncertain. Inside the vehicle, Marcus gently checked Ranger's condition, concern etched deeply into his features. He's weakening, he murmured softly. We must reach medical care immediately. Kate cradled Ranger tenderly, heart heavy with fear. Please hold on, Ranger. We're almost safe. Yet her words felt fragile, uncertain. Admiral Blake turned grimly toward them, expression troubled yet resolute. This fight isn't over yet. Callahan's allies won't stop. They're desperate to recover Ranger's information. Until it's securely removed or neutralized, none of us are safe. Kate drew a deep, determined breath, steeling herself bravely. Then we fight together, no matter what it takes. Ranger deserves peace. He's given everything for us. Marcus squeezed her hand reassuringly, resolve shining fiercely in his eyes. Together, until Ranger is truly safe. But just as hope flickered tentatively in Kate's heart, Admiral Blake's radio crackled sharply again, a chilling update echoing urgently through the armored vehicle's interior. Admiral Blake, be advised, enemy forces mobilizing rapidly toward our extraction point. Surveillance confirms multiple attack helicopters approaching fast. Callahan's group is throwing everything they have left at retrieving Ranger. Recommend immediate diversion. Your escape route is compromised. Kate's heart sank, fear gripping her chest fiercely. Marcus and Blake exchanged grave, worried glances, understanding fully the critical stakes they now faced. Their desperate struggle for Ranger's safety had reached its most dangerous turning point, and their greatest test was still ahead. The ominous roar of incoming helicopters shattered any fleeting relief inside Admiral Blake's armored vehicle. Kate's heart lurched painfully, dread twisting through her chest, fear gripping her tightly as reality set in. The enemy wasn't going to give up easily. Ranger's life, and all he represented, was too valuable to those who pursued him. Blake immediately barked orders into his radio, voice firm and resolute. "Evasive maneuvers now. Divert immediately to secondary extraction point. Move quickly." The armored vehicle swerved sharply, jolting violently along rugged terrain, Kate clutching Ranger tightly to her chest, desperately shielding him from the turbulence. Marcus steadied her protectively, eyes fierce yet calming, silently reassuring despite their dire situation. Through the vehicle's reinforced windows, Kate glimpsed the menacing silhouettes of attack helicopters, heavily armed and rapidly closing distance, searchlights blazing fiercely through darkness, tracking their desperate escape route. "Commander, Lieutenant, brace yourselves," Blake shouted urgently. "We're entering hostile engagement. Hold Ranger secure." Within moments, a terrifying hail of gunfire erupted from the pursuing aircraft, bullets striking dangerously close, metallic impacts echoing deafeningly inside the armored vehicle. Kate instinctively shielded Ranger further, whispering soothingly despite her fear. Ranger whimpered softly, body trembling slightly, overwhelmed yet bravely enduring the chaos. Marcus exchanged urgent glances with Blake, both recognizing the grim reality. They couldn't outrun attack helicopters indefinitely. Their vehicle, though reinforced, couldn't withstand sustained aerial assault. "We need air support immediately," Marcus shouted into the comms, urgency tightening his voice. "They're firing heavily. We can't last much longer," Blake responded swiftly, calling desperately into his radio. "This is Admiral Blake requesting immediate air support. Enemy helicopters actively engaging. Extraction team in imminent danger. Respond now." The radio crackled harshly, static-filled voices returning urgently. "Admiral Blake, support en route. 2 minutes out. Hold your position if possible." Marcus grimaced fiercely. 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours. Blake's jaw tightened grimly. "We hold the line. We protect Ranger at all costs." Suddenly, another barrage struck violently, the vehicle jolting sharply, tires squealing desperately as their driver attempted evasive maneuvers. Kate gasped sharply, gripping Ranger closer as Marcus braced protectively around them, but the vehicle began swerving uncontrollably, rapidly losing speed, smoke billowing ominously from damaged engine compartments. "We're losing power," the driver shouted frantically. "We need immediate cover," Blake signaled urgently. "Abandon vehicle! Move Ranger and civilians into cover immediately." Marcus grabbed Kate's hand, swiftly guiding her through the vehicle's rear hatch. Emerging into the chaotic darkness, they hurried desperately toward dense woodland nearby. Ranger cradled tightly, the elderly dog panting softly, clearly distressed, yet bravely holding on. Enemy helicopters circled ominously above, searchlights scanning relentlessly, heavy gunfire erupting intermittently, shredding surrounding terrain dangerously close. Within moments, Blake, Marcus, Kate, and their remaining SEAL escort reached the tree line, taking temporary refuge behind thick trunks, hearts hammering furiously. Marcus scanned anxiously, calculating their precarious position. "We can't stay here. Enemy thermal imaging will detect us soon." Blake nodded sharply. "We move immediately through dense cover, protect Ranger at all costs." They hurried deeper into shadowy forest, navigating treacherous underbrush swiftly, adrenaline surging fiercely. Ranger's breathing was labored, body weakening noticeably from stress and exhaustion. Kate's heart shattered painfully at his suffering, yet her resolve only strengthened further. "Stay with me, Ranger," she whispered softly yet firmly. "You're stronger than they realize." Marcus moved protectively beside her, his presence steadying despite relentless chaos. Yet suddenly, overhead, another helicopter swooped dangerously low, powerful spotlight piercing sharply through branches, immediately locating their fleeing group. Gunfire erupted fiercely, bullets striking dangerously close. Blake and his men returned fire desperately, bravely defending their fragile escape route. "Get down!" Marcus shouted urgently, shielding Kate instinctively as debris scattered violently around them. But then, unexpectedly, another roar erupted powerfully from beyond their vision. Two Navy fighter jets streaking dramatically into view, their missiles firing precisely, rapidly neutralizing enemy helicopters in powerful, fiery explosions. Kate's heart soared with hope. Real air support had arrived, but their relief was fleeting. Enemy reinforcements emerged swiftly on the ground, heavily armed operatives rapidly closing distance through dense woods. Marcus exchanged determined glances with Blake, both understanding clearly. Ground forces still threatened their escape severely. "We must reach extraction now," Blake shouted fiercely. "Move fast. Hold formation tightly." They sprinted urgently through chaotic darkness, dodging gunfire narrowly, hearts pounding fiercely. Kate stumbled slightly, exhausted yet relentlessly determined. Marcus steadied her immediately, fierce protectiveness blazing in his eyes. "Keep moving, we're almost there," Marcus encouraged passionately. "Rangers depending on us." Finally, emerging suddenly from dense woodland, they reached a small clearing, secondary extraction finally visible, a Navy helicopter waiting urgently, rotors spinning powerfully, SEAL operators signaling frantically for rapid boarding. Yet, as they approached desperately, Callahan's operatives emerged from shadows again, weapons trained mercilessly, blocking final escape routes. Callahan himself stood defiantly among them, bleeding yet ruthless, eyes blazing with desperate, fanatical determination. "This ends now!" Callahan shouted bitterly. "Hand over Ranger, or we destroy you all!" Kate's heart tightened sharply, dread paralyzing her momentarily. Marcus stepped protectively before her, voice steady yet filled with quiet resolve. "You've lost, Callahan. Ranger's safe. Your obsession destroyed everything you once stood for." Callahan's expression twisted hatefully, voice dangerously cold. "I'll destroy everything before letting you win." But before Callahan could act, another fierce bark resonated powerfully from Ranger's weakened body, bravery surging through him once more. With unexpected energy, Ranger struggled upright bravely, staring defiantly toward Callahan, challenging unwaveringly even now. Kate's eyes filled tearfully, pride overwhelming fear. Ranger's courage reminded everyone clearly, the true value of loyalty, bravery, compassion. Then, another shout echoed urgently from extraction helicopter, SEAL reinforcements rapidly approaching, providing covering fire, neutralizing Callahan's operatives swiftly, finally securing their fragile escape route. "Move now!" Blake shouted sharply, urgency blazing in his voice. "Extraction secured, board immediately." Marcus guided Kate swiftly toward waiting helicopter. Ranger cradled protectively. Callahan fell back bitterly, watching helplessly as his remaining operatives scattered, finally defeated decisively. Yet, as Kate approached helicopter door, another sudden warning shouted urgently from SEAL operator inside. "Commander, enemy sniper detected. Take cover immediately." Kate's breath froze sharply, horror gripping her fiercely. She instinctively shielded Ranger, bracing desperately, yet Marcus reacted instantly, shielding Kate protectively with his own body, just as deafening gunshot echoed sharply through night. Marcus staggered suddenly, shock crossing his face, gripping his shoulder painfully. He'd been hit. Kate screamed desperately, horror overwhelming her. "Marcus!" He collapsed slowly, strength rapidly fading. Callahan's cruel laughter echoed distantly through darkness, bitter and vengeful, as he retreated swiftly into shadows. Marcus's gaze locked weakly onto Kate's tearful eyes, voice trembling softly. "Protect Ranger. Promise me." Then darkness consumed him fully, collapsing limply into Kate's horrified embrace, her heart shattering violently, overwhelming fear flooding her soul. The ultimate battle for Ranger's life had reached its darkest, most devastating turning point. "Marcus!" Kate's desperate cry echoed sharply through the darkness, anguish tearing through her as she cradled Marcus's limp form, his blood seeping slowly onto her trembling hands. Chaos erupted around them, urgent shouts ringing out from Commander Morgan and Admiral Blake as they quickly rallied their forces. desperately trying to secure the scene. "Medic! Now!" Blake barked furiously, urgency tightening his voice. Navy medics rushed immediately toward Marcus, swiftly and expertly assessing his condition. Kate reluctantly released him into their care, heart shattering painfully, desperate tears clouding her vision. Marcus stirred faintly, struggling to open his eyes, his breath shallow. He met Kate's anguished gaze, determination flickering weakly but clearly in his fading strength. "Kate," he whispered painfully, voice strained yet resolute. "Protect Ranger, he needs you more than ever." Kate gripped his hand tightly, tears streaming freely. "You'll make it, Marcus. I won't lose you. Please hold on." He squeezed her hand faintly, a small reassuring smile crossing his face despite his agony. "I'm not leaving without a fight. But Ranger must come first." Before Kate could respond, medics swiftly loaded Marcus onto the helicopter, urgently preparing emergency care. Admiral Blake gently yet firmly guided Kate toward the helicopter's interior, Ranger still cradled securely in her trembling arms. "Miss Daniels, we must move immediately," Blake urged solemnly. "Marcus needs urgent medical attention, and Ranger must be secured. Please, we have no time left." Kate nodded numbly, her heart shattered by Marcus's injury yet fiercely protective of Ranger's fragile life. Settling quickly inside the helicopter, Kate held Ranger carefully, the elderly dog breathing weakly, yet bravely, eyes gazing deeply into hers with profound trust and loyalty. "You're so brave, Ranger," she whispered softly, stroking his fur gently. "We're almost safe now. Just hold on." As the helicopter lifted rapidly from the chaotic battleground, Kate glanced anxiously toward Marcus, surrounded by medics urgently working to stabilize him. Commander Morgan approached quietly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Marcus is strong, he'll fight through this," Morgan assured gently. "He wouldn't leave Ranger or you willingly. Trust his strength." Kate nodded tearfully, clinging to hope desperately. Yet just as the helicopter finally reached altitude, another urgent alarm sounded inside the cabin. "Admiral Blake, enemy radar lock detected," shouted the pilot frantically. "Incoming missile, brace for evasive maneuvers." Kate's heart seized sharply, horror gripping her tightly once again. Blake immediately signaled sharply, voice resolute yet tense. "Deploy countermeasures now, everyone brace." The helicopter jolted violently, desperate evasive maneuvers underway as the pilot expertly deployed flares and defensive systems. Explosions rattled sharply nearby, deafening and terrifying. Amid chaos, Ranger suddenly stirred weakly in Kate's arms, eyes widening slightly, alertness returning briefly, despite exhaustion and pain. He barked softly yet determinedly, urgently drawing Kate's attention downward. Glancing swiftly, Kate noticed something faintly glowing beneath Ranger's fur, a hidden, previously unnoticed implant flickering faintly. Kate's eyes widened sharply, realization dawning swiftly. "Admiral Blake!" she shouted urgently. "There's another tracking implant. It's still active." Blake reacted instantly, turning sharply toward Morgan. "We need it disabled now." Morgan grabbed emergency tools, swiftly yet delicately examining Ranger's fur, locating the hidden microchip. This must be the main tracker Caldwell's using. Deep encryption, highly advanced. Deactivating it might take time. "Time we don't have," Blake growled tensely, glancing urgently outside. More enemy helicopters rapidly approached, weapons poised aggressively. Kate's mind raced frantically, fear gripping her fiercely. But then, unexpectedly, Ranger gazed deeply into her eyes, calm and trusting despite chaos surrounding them. His expression seemed almost comforting, his eyes filled with unconditional loyalty, understanding, and deep courage. In that moment, Kate understood clearly. Ranger wasn't afraid, he trusted her completely, ready for whatever came next. His quiet bravery ignited fiercely within her heart, determination overcoming fear decisively. "Do it," Kate commanded firmly, voice steady despite turmoil around her. "I'll hold Ranger. He trusts me, just hurry." Morgan nodded sharply, working swiftly yet carefully to disable the tracker implant. Ranger lay quietly, trusting Kate completely, unwaveringly loyal even now. Yet outside, enemy helicopters approached swiftly, firing aggressively, desperate to stop their escape. Blake urgently commanded defensive fire, SEALs aboard helicopter responding bravely, engaging fiercely with enemy aircraft, valiantly defending their fragile evacuation. Finally, Morgan extracted the tiny device, disabling it quickly. "Tracker neutralized, we're clear." Blake immediately relayed this urgently to pilots, signaling sharply, "Tracker disabled, lose them now." Immediate extraction at maximum speed. The helicopter surged powerfully forward, rapidly distancing enemy pursuers, finally breaking free from radar lock, escaping immediate danger at last. Kate exhaled shakily, profound relief flooding her heart. She stroked Ranger tenderly, smiling gently through tears of gratitude. "You did it, Ranger. You're safe now, finally." Ranger sighed softly, body relaxing deeply, breathing calming significantly. His gentle eyes gazed lovingly into Kate's, clearly expressing profound trust, gratitude, and deep connection forged amid adversity. Yet despite relief, Kate's heart remained heavy with anxiety, urgently glancing toward Marcus again. Medics continued fiercely stabilizing him, his condition fragile yet fighting bravely. Kate reached gently toward Marcus, gripping his hand again, heart aching fiercely. "Stay with us, Marcus," she pleaded tearfully yet determinedly. "We need you." Marcus stirred faintly, eyes opening slowly, meeting Kate's gaze weakly yet warmly. He smiled gently, squeezing her hand softly in reassurance. "Not going anywhere. Told you. I'd fight." Kate smiled tremulously, heart overwhelmed by relief and love. "You kept your promise." Marcus's eyes softened warmly, determination returning despite pain. "Always." Commander Morgan approached gently, expression cautiously hopeful. "We're nearly at secure facility. Marcus will get immediate care. Ranger will be completely safe, but our fight isn't over yet. Caldwell's network is vast. They'll retaliate soon." Kate nodded firmly, determination blazing fiercely within her heart. "Then we'll face them, together. Ranger deserves peace. Marcus deserves to heal. We won't let fear win." Marcus nodded weakly, yet resolutely, eyes bright with determination. "Together. Always." Kate smiled warmly, her heart filled deeply with courage and hope, despite uncertainty ahead. Ranger sighed softly in her arms, finally resting peacefully, secure in the loyalty and bravery surrounding him. Yet, just as they neared secure facility, another sudden emergency transmission crackled urgently from Admiral Blake's radio, voice tense with fear. "Admiral Blake, urgent. Facility compromised. Enemy infiltrators detected on site. Heavily armed, awaiting your arrival. Repeat, secure facility breached. Do not approach." Blake's eyes widened sharply, horror gripping him fiercely. Marcus and Kate exchanged devastated glances, realization crashing heavily upon them. Their final sanctuary, their last hope, had been cruelly compromised. The true climax, the ultimate battle for Ranger's survival, was finally here. And this time, escape wasn't an option. The helicopter hovered tensely above the compromised facility, its rotors slicing through the night air, the rhythmic beat echoing the relentless pulse of danger. Admiral Blake's jaw tightened grimly as he processed the shocking transmission. Enemy infiltrators had already breached their final sanctuary. The facility, meant as a secure haven, was now a deadly trap. Kate's heart sank with crushing despair, dread twisting sharply within her chest. Ranger whimpered softly in her arms, sensing tension even in his weakened state. Marcus, pale but determined, struggled upright despite his injury, gripping Kate's hand firmly, eyes burning fiercely with protective resolve. "We can't land here," Blake decided sharply, voice strained yet decisive. "Pilot, divert immediately. Secondary extraction point now." But before the pilot could respond, enemy ground forces suddenly emerged below, their heavy weapons firing mercilessly toward the helicopter, tracer rounds illuminating the night in deadly arcs. "Evasive maneuvers," Blake shouted urgently. "Climb, climb!" The helicopter jolted violently upward, narrowly evading deadly fire. Marcus shielded Kate and Ranger instinctively, bracing protectively as the pilot desperately maneuvered. Kate's heart pounded violently, adrenaline surging fiercely as she clutched Ranger tightly, whispering comforting words despite her overwhelming fear. The helicopter banked sharply, rotors screaming with strain as they sought escape from relentless pursuit. Commander Morgan quickly assessed their desperate situation, voice firm yet strained. "We need immediate backup. Ground extraction completely compromised. Admiral E, we must engage secondary emergency protocols." Blake nodded grimly. "Understood. Secure emergency rendezvous point Delta. Move fast." The pilot acknowledged swiftly, accelerating toward coordinates provided by Blake. But enemy helicopters, ruthless and relentless, reappeared swiftly from darkness, aggressively pursuing, weapons firing fiercely. "We're not outrunning them," the pilot shouted desperately. "We need cover, fast." Blake turned sharply toward Kate, urgency blazing in his eyes. "Miss Daniels, we'll have to secure Ranger in a separate evacuation pod. Automatic deployment. It's our last failsafe to protect him." Kate's heart tightened fiercely, horror gripping her sharply. "But we can't separate from him. He needs me." Marcus squeezed her hand gently, voice strained yet reassuring. "Kate, this pod is designed specifically for military dogs. Fully automated, armored, equipped with survival gear. It'll keep Ranger safe until backup arrives. It's our best chance." Kate's eyes filled with tears, heart wrenching painfully. Yet seeing Ranger's trusting gaze, she knew Marcus was right. Ranger's safety mattered most, even above her own fears. "Promise me we'll find him again," Kate pleaded tearfully yet determinedly. Marcus nodded firmly. "I swear it." Ranger won't be alone for long. Blake urgently prepared the automated pod, carefully placing Ranger inside. Kate knelt beside him, gently stroking his fur, tears streaming freely. "You're so brave, Ranger. Just hold on. We'll find you, no matter what." Ranger gazed lovingly into her eyes, trust shining profoundly, courage radiating despite exhaustion. The pod sealed securely, activating emergency protocols immediately. "Deploying pod," Blake shouted urgently. The pod detached swiftly, dropping smoothly toward dense woodland below, immediately activating camouflage and distress signals for secure recovery. Kate watched tearfully, yet resolutely, heart fiercely protective despite separation. Yet immediately afterward, enemy fire intensified fiercely, bullets ripping violently into helicopter's frame. Alarms blared frantically, smoke billowing ominously, systems failing rapidly. "We're going down!" the pilot shouted desperately. "Brace for impact." Marcus immediately shielded Kate protectively, embracing tightly as helicopter plunged rapidly downward. Kate closed her eyes fiercely, heart hammering violently, desperately hoping Marcus's embrace offered enough safety. The impact was devastating. Metal twisted, glass shattered, overwhelming chaos and pain erupting fiercely. When movement finally ceased, Kate opened her eyes slowly, dazed yet aware. Smoke filled the cabin, debris scattered dangerously. Marcus lay painfully beside her, conscious yet clearly weakened further. Blake struggled upright, urgently checking survivors. "Move quickly!" Blake commanded desperately. "They'll find us soon!" Yet before they could fully recover, enemy vehicles rapidly approached crash site, headlights piercing sharply through darkness, heavily armed operatives emerging swiftly, weapons trained mercilessly. Callahan himself stepped calmly into view, eyes cold yet triumphant. "This ends now. Ranger may be out of reach temporarily, but his protectors aren't. Surrender or you die here." Marcus grimaced bitterly, struggling upright protectively, despite immense pain. Kate stood bravely beside him, heart fiercely defiant despite despair. "You'll never win, Callahan," Kate challenged sharply. "Ranger's stronger than you'll ever understand. His courage defeats your cruelty." Callahan laughed bitterly, stepping closer threateningly. "Sentimentality won't protect you now. Ranger's secrets will be mine eventually, and you'll watch helplessly as everything you fought for crumbles." Yet suddenly, faint yet distinct barking echoed powerfully from woodland behind Callahan's operatives. Kate's heart surged hopefully. Ranger's pod had safely landed nearby, his automated signals alerting Allied forces rapidly converging now. Callahan's expression darkened furiously, confusion briefly crossing his face. Behind enemy lines, Swift, powerful movements emerged. Elite Navy SEAL reinforcements, led astonishingly by Jacob, fiercely determined, engaging enemy forces decisively. Chaos erupted anew. Callahan's operatives scattered frantically, rapidly overwhelmed by expertly coordinated SEAL counterattack. Jacob approached swiftly, determination blazing fiercely. "Rangers safe, pod recovered intact," Jacob shouted urgently. "Extraction inbound, hold tight." Kate exhaled tearfully, overwhelming relief flooding fiercely through her heart. Marcus squeezed her hand gently, smiling weakly yet warmly. "Told you Ranger wouldn't be alone long," Marcus murmured softly. Yet despite hope, Callahan suddenly lunged recklessly forward, weapon raised dangerously toward Kate, eyes wild with desperation and fury. Marcus reacted instantly, shielding Kate protectively once again despite injuries. But before Callahan could fire, another figure intercepted fiercely, Commander Morgan bravely tackling Callahan, fiercely wrestling for control. "Get them out of here," Morgan shouted urgently. "Protect Ranger and civilians, I'll handle this." Marcus nodded painfully yet firmly, guiding Kate urgently toward SEAL reinforcements, swiftly securing crash site. Admiral Blake quickly followed, heart heavy yet resolutely determined. Kate glanced tearfully toward Morgan bravely restraining Callahan, heart wrenching at another sacrifice made courageously for Ranger's protection. Moments later, secure extraction finally arrived. Ranger safely recovered, pod secured firmly. Kate cradled Ranger tenderly again, heart overwhelmed by relief, love, gratitude. "You're finally safe, Ranger," Kate whispered tearfully. "Your bravery saved us all." Yet, even as hope returned cautiously, Kate's heart sank painfully again. Commander Morgan had not re-emerged, his fate uncertain amid chaos behind them. Marcus squeezed her shoulder gently, reassuring despite grief. Morgan knew what he risked. He saved us bravely. We'll honor his courage. Kate nodded determinedly, heart fiercely resolute despite profound loss. Ranger's safety is our mission now. Morgan's sacrifice won't be in vain. But just as extraction finally lifted securely, another chilling radio transmission crackled sharply, Admiral Blake's eyes widening fearfully at devastating update. "Admiral, urgent. Enemy intercepted Morgan and Callahan. Morgan taken hostage. Callahan threatening immediate execution unless Ranger is surrendered." Kate's heart froze sharply, dread gripping fiercely once more, realization crashing heavily. Their victory was temporary. The final confrontation, unavoidable and devastatingly personal, now awaited them. The true climax had finally arrived. The command center was silent as the intercepted transmission played on a loop, each repetition like a punch to the chest. Morgan's voice, weak but defiant, was followed by the chilling sound of Callahan's ultimatum. "You have 30 minutes, he growled. "Return the dog, or your hero dies on camera." The footage was cruelly clear. Commander Morgan restrained, bloodied but unbroken, seated in a chair in a dark, undisclosed location. Behind him stood Callahan, calm, cold, weapon in hand. He didn't need to yell. The terror lay in his stillness. Kate couldn't breathe. Her body was frozen. Ranger curled at her feet, sensing the storm within her. Marcus sat beside her, jaw clenched, arms crossed tightly across his chest despite the pain still radiating through his body. Admiral Blake was already coordinating satellite scans and tactical sweeps, but it was clear they wouldn't find the location in time. The clock was ticking fast. "We can't negotiate with him," Blake said, his voice low but firm. "He'll kill Morgan whether we give up Ranger or not." Kate turned sharply, her voice shaking with fury. "So we do nothing. Let him die, after everything he did for us." Blake didn't flinch. "No, we act, but we do it smart. If we give him Ranger, Callahan wins. He'll sell Ranger's blood, exploit his genetic profile, turn his gift into a weapon. That's what this is about." Kate looked down at Ranger. The old dog looked up at her, tail barely wagging. He didn't look like a weapon. He looked like a survivor, a friend, a hero. "Is there any way?" Kate asked slowly. "We can fake it, a decoy." "We tried it once," Marcus interjected. "He spotted it in under 5 seconds. He knows Ranger's scent, his posture, even his scars. Callahan was part of the original unit. He trained the real Ranger. Silence fell. Kate's mind raced. Then she stood. "I'll go." Everyone turned toward her. "I'll bring Ranger. I'll demand Morgan's release in person, face to face." "No," Blake's voice cut like steel. "Absolutely not. You'll both be killed." "Not if we control the narrative," she said, heart pounding. "Callahan wants Ranger alive. I'll play that card. I'll be the insurance." Marcus stood too, his body trembling with the effort. "If she goes, I go. We end this together." "No," Blake said again, but less forcefully. "They won't shoot me," Kate continued, eyes locked on Blake. "He needs Ranger, and he won't expect me to come alone." Blake sighed heavily, knowing there were no good options left, only risks. And time was running out. They landed in a remote clearing 2 hours later, under heavy cloud cover. The coordinates had been delivered through a scrambled radio transmission. Blake had deployed an Overwatch unit, hidden in the tree liners with long-range rifles and drones on standby. Kate stepped forward, hands visible, carrying Ranger gently against her chest. She wore a mic under her collar, a panic trigger in her sleeve. From the edge of the woods, Callahan emerged. Morgan was dragged beside him, pale and barely conscious now, blood dripping from a gash across his temple. A mercenary held him upright. Callahan smirked when he saw Kate. "Touching," he said. "You came. The girl who loves dogs." Kate didn't respond. She stopped exactly where instructed, 10 feet away. "I'm not giving him to you until Morgan walks to me," she said clearly. "Unharmed," Callahan laughed. "Still giving orders, are we?" She held Ranger tighter. "You don't get him unless Morgan goes free. You said that yourself." Callahan tilted his head. Then, to everyone's shock, he motioned to his men. "Let him go." Morgan dropped to the dirt. He tried to crawl forward but collapsed, groaning in agony. Kate's breath caught. She glanced quickly toward the tree line. No movement yet. Blake was waiting for her signal. "Now send Ranger," Callahan said, opening a reinforced cage behind him. Kate knelt, tears brimming in her eyes as she kissed Ranger's head. "Be brave," she whispered. "Just a little longer." Then, as rehearsed, she stood, and instead of walking forward, she lifted her arm and triggered the beacon. All hell broke loose. Smoke canisters launched from the tree line. Callahan's men staggered as flashes and loud bangs erupted around them. Drones swarmed from overhead, jamming signals and capturing footage. Snipers took down 2 mercenaries immediately. Callahan screamed, lunging toward Kate, but she was faster. She dropped to the ground, covering Ranger with her body as Marcus, who had crawled into position earlier, emerged behind Callahan and tackled him to the dirt. The old soldier still had fight left in him. SEALs swarmed in. In under 2 minutes, the site was secure. Morgan was retrieved. Callahan was cuffed, furious and spitting curses. His empire collapsed around him. His final card had failed. Kate remained on her knees, shaking, as Ranger licked her cheek gently. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us all." Weeks had passed since the night the world changed for Kate, for Marcus, and for Ranger. The operation was classified as a success. Callahan's network had been exposed and dismantled, thanks in part to the encrypted data retrieved from his private server, ironically stored on the same tablet he had carried into the clearing. His ties to illegal genetic experimentation, mercenary contracts, and trafficking of military-grade K9s were now the subject of international investigations. But the true victory couldn't be captured in a report or a medal. It lived in the quiet moments, like now on a warm afternoon in a small, quiet town tucked away from the noise of the world. Kate sat on a bench in a grassy park behind the local veterinary center. Children played nearby, their laughter drifting through the air like music. Ranger lay beside her, head resting peacefully on her foot, his coat brushed and soft, the IV ports long gone, the scars slowly fading. He was old, slower now, but alive. More importantly, free. Kate reached down and scratched his ears gently. His tail thumped against the grass in gratitude. Behind her, Marcus approached, walking with a slight limp, a reminder of the price they'd all paid. But his eyes were light, peaceful in a way she hadn't seen before. "He had a good checkup," Marcus said, lowering himself onto the bench beside her. "Vet says he's strong, stronger than most dogs half his age." Kate smiled softly. "Of course he is." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sun filter through the trees. "I still think about Morgan," Kate murmured, her voice tinged with both grief and admiration. "He didn't hesitate." Marcus nodded solemnly. "He saved us all, Ranger especially. We'll make sure his name is remembered the right way." "He never saw Ranger like this," Kate whispered. "Free, safe, loved." "You made that happen," Marcus said. "Not me, not Blake. You." Kate didn't answer. She just leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder and for once let herself breathe. Later that week, a small ceremony was held at the naval base. It wasn't flashy, no cameras, no public announcements, just a folded flag, a handful of soldiers, and a plaque with Morgan's name engraved in steel. Kate stood beside Marcus as Admiral Blake handed her a sealed letter. "It's from the Department of Defense," Blake said. "They're granting Ranger official discharge status, with full honors. It's the first time it's ever been done for a retired animal under classified service." Kate opened the envelope, and inside was a certificate bearing Ranger's name. "Sergeant Ranger, honorable discharge, decorated with the Medal of Loyalty and Courage." Tears welled in her eyes. Ranger barked once, loud and proud, tail wagging like a soldier at attention. The whole room chuckled. Blake knelt down and looked Ranger in the eye. "You earned your peace, boy." Weeks turned into months. Kate found herself adjusting to a new kind of life. Quieter, simpler. She'd taken a job at the local animal rescue center, helping stray dogs find homes and peace, just as Ranger had. Marcus stayed nearby, helping coordinate a new division for military dog rehabilitation. They'd named it the Morgan Initiative, in honor of the man who gave his life to protect one. Ranger, of course, became the unofficial mascot. He'd lie at the entrance every morning, greeting every animal that walked in as if saying, "You're safe here now." Some said he could sense when a dog had trauma. He'd nudge closer, curl up beside them, and somehow it helped. One day, Kate found a letter in her mailbox, no return address. Inside, a single sentence, handwritten in shaky penmanship. "He saved me too. J." Kate read it twice, then tucked it away in her journal, next to the first photo she'd taken of Ranger sleeping in the diner doorway. She never told anyone. Some things didn't need to be shared to matter. And so life continued, not without scars, but with healing. The girl who was once fired for feeding a stray dog was now running an entire network of shelters funded by anonymous donors. Rumor had it that a few Navy SEALs had something to do with the logistics. Marcus eventually asked her to dinner, properly this time. Ranger barked when Marcus showed up in a tie. They laughed. They talked about the past, about Morgan, about what might have been, but mostly they looked forward. Kate reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. "You think he knows he changed everything?" Marcus glanced down at Ranger, curled up at their feet. "I think he always knew." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Ranger's courage isn't just fiction. It reflects the loyalty, sacrifice, and love animals show us every day. And if you want to see another unbelievable story about a loyal dog who risked it all to save his owner, click on the video right here. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness change the world.